This is the Riese Müller Roadster Mixte Vario. This thing comes in a bunch of different configurations. They have a high step Roadster, the Mixte, which is very approachable with that mid-step design. There are 2 frame sizes and 2 colors. We're looking at the gloss white, but they also have a matte light green that looks really good. Riese Müller is known for just customization. You can really go nuts with this thing, whether it's an 11-speed Shimano Deore XT drivetrain, 11 to 50 tooth spread, pretty awesome, or they call this one the Vario with the Enviolo N380 380% gear ratio. This is more equivalent to like an 11 to 36 spread, so it's not quite as wide, but you get this belt drive, and that is very clean and quiet, and it's set up so well with this guide up here. We got a little tensioner in the back. You don't always see that. Riese Müller goes above and beyond when they build their bikes. Of course, you're going to pay a little bit more for this option, and it's going to add some weight. About 2 pounds is what I would estimate if you go with this. I really like cassettes and chains, and just because it's so tight and it's light. But I've got to say, I mean, there's no derailleur hanging down here. It's not going to require as much maintenance. It's quiet, it's clean. They had to custom design this frame. You can see there's actually a breakaway right here, and then there's this like floating hanger, so you can get the Gates carbon belt drive on track. And of course, this is the CDX, so you can see a channel down the middle. It aligns with the blade in the middle of the chainring and the rear cog. These things just, they go and go. They tend to last longer than chains. So if you were using this every day and you just didn't want to worry about it at the bike rack, this could be a really cool option. In terms of price, it's about $6,100 US starting out, but when you add like the rear rack that we have here, the comfort package with the suspension seat post and the swept back handlebars and ergonomic grips, some of that starts to add up, and including the display. So I mentioned all the customizations. This is the highest end, fanciest Bosch Nyon. It's like a color LCD display. It is removable. It's got the remote button pad. It has turn-by-turn directions, mapping and everything. This is top of the line. Otherwise, you can go with the Purion, which is just, it's a smaller display, it's grayscale, and it's kind of a button pad display combination. It's over here on the left near the left grip. Or you can get the smartphone hub, where you use your smartphone, and that's sort of similar to the Nyon. You can still do directions, and you get some feedback, and there's sort of a little button pad. I think you can plug it in and sort of charge it on the go, but that's also the case with the Nyon. I love that they've got a micro USB charging port built right into the bottom, right next to the power and lights button, which kind of makes sense. And the lights they chose are really good. We've got a 2C type light in the rear with 2 LEDs, gotta love that. In the front, we have a supernova, very bright, and it's right where you want it, right at the handlebar, kind of at the stem, so it's high up. It's not gonna get blocked by the fender. It's gonna make you more noticeable, and it's got an aluminum alloy housing, so it's tough too. If you notice these tires here, they've got reflective sidewall stripes, and when you get like the white frame, the whole thing is just going to be that much more visible. It's the perfect setup for someone who's like commuting in a city environment but maybe wants to cut across some gravel or take a path, because these Schwabe tires, these are called the G1, they've got a tight tread pattern. They're going to give you a little bit of traction. These are 28 by 1.5. Check this out, we got a 15mm through axle up front. That was unexpected. Usually you just got like a 9mm axle with a quick release skewer. So this is sturdier, it's kind of beefier, but it's still a fairly minimalist fork. It's SR Sun Tour. It's got about 60mm of travel up here. And what's really cool is it has preload with like a little clicker, so you can preload the spring based on your body weight, as well as hydraulic lockout. So you can completely lock it out if you want to be efficient. Really wide tire pressure range too. It's like 45 to 70. So if you go to the higher pressure, it's not going to be as comfortable, but it's going to be really efficient. And again, the tight tread and everything, I just feel like it gives you a lot of options. This is really like a hybrid setup, and the stock handlebar would be more flat, a little bit more aggressive, versus this swept back comfort package brings your body upright a bit more. And those grips, I love those. And in the rear, we've got utility covered as well. So this is a rack time, kind of a narrow, clean, streamlined rack. Gives you 20 kilograms of support, which is, sometimes I'll see like 25 kilograms, which is like 55 pounds versus like 44 pounds here. Rack Time has these compatible accessories that sort of click on, but otherwise you could use pannier bags on the side, and we do have a little bungee loop. Some panniers can connect to that, and maybe a trunk bag on top. Love that we got the bottle cage bosses here, and just the way that the fenders and everything mount. I mean, check this out. It mounts directly in the front. You're not using a plastic cuff, and we have 2 support arms off to the side so it won't rattle as much. Same thing in the rear. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 points of connection, so it really mates with the rack. 170 millimeter crank arms. These awesome pedals, they're from VP, and instead of having big metal spikes, they've got this grip tape thing going on, so it just feels like, you know, that's going to work with kind of your city shoes and not get all gummed up. If you don't get their comfort package and you want to swap the seat post out on your own, it's 34.9 millimeters, and there are lots of suspension seat posts available to choose from. They got a Cellular Royale saddle. It's called the Shadow, and it's fairly comfortable. An adjustable length Pletcher kickstand works very well. It hasn't been bouncing around a whole lot, and it's just very clean and streamlined, like I keep saying. Charge port here on the left-hand side of the bike. It's, you know, this is one of the areas where it's got a nice cover. It almost feels magnetic, but it's right there in the path of the left crank arm. So if you were charging this bike and the pedals got bumped, you know, plus it's low on the bike versus the locking cylinder, which is ABUS, it's up high on the right-hand side of the bike, much easier to reach. And thank goodness, because you have to use kind of 2 hands when you're removing the battery. This thing weighs about 8.4 pounds. The bike total weighs about 53 pounds if you don't have any of the upgrades, 56 pounds if you get the upgrades that are shown here. And again, the price here is like $400 more for everything. That's just doesn't come standard. The battery has a nice rubberized cover. It's got a little power button on it that sort of activates the LEDs. I feel like it's a really clean solution, but when you look at the bike, there's the fender and then that down tube. They're pretty close to each other. Okay, so it's a little bit crowded. It definitely takes 2 hands, and especially when you put the battery back on the bike, because you have to actively unlock it while pushing the battery in. It's something I complain about a lot with the Bosch PowerTube system, because you're holding a lot of weight and you have to use 2 hands. It'd be nice if you could just click it right in, but maybe it's not as secure when you have like a ramped latch. This is the 625 watt-hour battery, which is the highest capacity for their last generation of drive systems. The newest generation is called the Smart System. It is not interchangeable. They have a completely separate motor, battery, and display system. This is sort of top of the line for this last generation, and I think it's great. I mean, 625 watt-hours is very high capacity, and you want that when you've got the Bosch Performance Line CX motor or the Speed motor. Those are the 2 options you get. Both motors are going to have very similar characteristics. So up to 85 Newton meters of torque on this thing. It measures the rear wheel speed, pedal cadence, and pedal torque. I think the rear wheel speed sensor is also kind of connected to the hub here, so it's not like a spoke magnet that can get bumped out of position as easily. It's just a very nice setup. This thing can support up to 120 RPM. Actually, I think above that. So if you're pedaling really, really fast, it's not like the motor's gonna kind of fade out. This also has shift detection. It tends to be pretty light too. It's like 6.4 pounds compared to some of the older generations of CX motors. They were like 8.8 pounds. This one has a magnesium housing. It does not cycle the chain or belt in this case backwards. They got that nice friction kind of click thing going on, so the pedal shouldn't spin around and hit you in the shins. The brakes are also really good. These are Magura. We got the MT4s, and they've got like 3-finger levers with a ball end, so it's not sharp. Gotta love that. 180 millimeter rotors front and rear with dual piston calipers, but you'll notice they're extra big. So Magura is known for sort of having this actuation that's very natural. It sort of pulls towards you instead of in. Maybe I'm just drinking their Kool-Aid, but I went to like a ride camp with them and tried a bunch of their brakes. They do tend to work really well, and they have this just really smooth kind of ramped actuation. Definitely an upgrade from what you might see on some other bikes. I like that a lot of these wires are run right down and enter the frame right here at the steer tube, which is great. Look at this A-cross cover here. You don't see that all the time, and this is a tapered steer tube, so if you wanted to upgrade the suspension someday, get an air fork, you got that thru-axle setup, you got the tapered steer tube. Gotta love that. So I'm going to do a ride test here to adjust the level of assist. We'll press plus or minus, and I love how the whole screen kind of changes color in the background, so if you can't read the description, in this case eco, you can sense like, oh, it's green, that's eco, blue is tour, sport is kind of a purple, and turbo is red. Other readouts include the sort of multi-screen, which you can rearrange in the settings. It shows trip distance, trip time, average speed, altitude. Here's the map. So we had to download the map for Canada. So I'm gonna go in turbo and just ride down this ramp here. Go off-road here in the grass. I'm not hearing any fenders rattling. Everything seems tight and sturdy, which is definitely what you want. We're away from traffic. I'm gonna try to show you that motor noise again. There we go, and I think I just topped that 20 miles per hour. There's no drag or anything. The motor just kind of fades out, and then it's on you to go faster, pedal a little bit harder. Or if you're going down a hill, just get that extra speed. Very nice. I'm gonna take this curb. Wow. Very quiet, even going off the curb. And the cool thing about the Vario is that if you make it to a stop sign, you can shift gears while you're not even pedaling. And that's great. You can just start off in the correct gear, pedal right into it. Well guys, I think that's about it. That's my look at the Roadster, the Mixte. In this case, we got the Vario, and this is the 45 centimeter frame. They also have a 53, so it's kind of like a small medium and then medium large going on. For the full written review on this, check out ElectricBikeReview.com. It measured all the specs by hand. There's also a comparison tool, so you can look at some other hybrid sort of city bikes that are set up this way at different price points. I really appreciate City Cycles for letting me borrow this and kind of walking through some of the different stats with me. It's always fun to get help like that, and when you've got a system that you spent so much money on with more complex parts, it's great to have someone who can give you warranty support. Bosch drive systems do have 2-year comprehensive support, and everything else on this bike, as you can see, it's really high-end, nice stuff. I think this configuration in particular is going to be very durable. It's very intuitive. You got the infographic with the little guy climbing the hill. You don't have to learn how trigger shifters work. I think that's about it. Ride safe out there. I love you. We'll see you next time.